My name is Samantha Marie Van Fossen. I'm a specialist. I'm in the Army Reserve. I joined hoping that I could get on a deployment as quick as I could because I want to do good things for my country. The only thing that I have trouble with is just leaving my family. My mom, I know she's not going to want to see me go. And my dad, he's going to have a really hard time with that too. But they're all proud of me, so that's all that matters.
Love you, honey. Bye.
These wars are very different than the ones we have fought in the past. When we first started, we had not deployed for extended period of time. And then the length of deployments, 12 months, and then in some cases 15-month deployments. And then going back for the second, the third, and the fourth time, the impact it had on our families was significant.
It's definitely true that the whole family serves. You're asking kids to move frequently. You're asking kids and spouses to be without their other spouse for long periods of time. The deployments of the last 14 years have really been tough on families.
This is the first generation of military kids that has grown up experiencing mom or dad being gone for multiple deployments. And we're working hard to understand what the implications of this lifestyle is for children, but we're not likely to really fully understand until, they grow.
We are engaged in those longest sustained combat operations in the history of our country, and it is being done for the first time in our history with an all-volunteer professional military force. And that does take a great toll on our families. It's been a struggle.
I mean, every day you wake up, you know that the person you love is in harm's way, and there's a lot of praying going on.
When I travel around to visit troops, I will often ask them, how many of you are here on your first deployment? How many on your second, third, fourth, fifth? I'll generally get up to 6, 7, sometimes 8. And I think some young men and women actually have to decide for themselves, which one is the real world? Is it the world that they experience with their battle buddies and wingmen and swim buddies in combat? Or is it the world at home?
Funding for the Homefront was provided in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Additional funding was also provided by the Boeing Company. Boeing recognizes that service and defense of our nation is a mission that extends to entire families. For nearly 100 years, Boeing has been deeply committed to supporting our nation's military personnel, veterans, and their families. Additional funding was also provided by the Stephen and Alexandra Cohen Foundation, honoring our obligation to give back to those who have served the United States.
Good evening, I'm Bob Woodruff. Since 9/11, American troops have been engaged in the longest period of sustained combat in our history, 14 years and counting. Today's military families are experiencing something new. And yet only a tiny fraction of American families include a service member or a recent veteran. The all-volunteer force is made up of 1.3 million active duty troops and another 800,000 in the National Guard and Reserve. More than half are married, and the vast majority of those families have children as well. Tonight, you will get a chance to meet those families, some of the most important and least understood families in America. Families that have chosen the United States military as a career.
Diego, stay on the back and get ready to run. Baseball stance. All right, boys, ready? Sebastian, you ready? Diego, you gotta stay foot on the bag. LJ, stand up. All right, boys, ready?
My name is Staff Sergeant Leo Robert Gruba in the United States Army.
There you go, run it out. 30 seconds, Jet.
I come from a really long, extensive military background.
Captain?
I grew up in a Navy family. My father kind of set the stage for my involvement in the military. And I grew up from pretty much post to post, from the east side of the United States all the way to Hawaii.
Slide, you're not gonna slide? What's going on today?
My name is Serena Marie Gruba, and my husband is Leo Robert Gruba. I actually met him in March of 2005 while I was going to nursing school. I have an MBA in healthcare administration, so full-time nurse and full-time mom.
Ball. All right, run, LJ. Drop the bat, LJ.
LJ just recently turned 6, so trying to explain to him what I'm doing can get difficult at times, but I always tell him I'm off fighting the bad guys, and for a 6-year-old, that kind of connects, that resonates.
When he said he was deploying again, I was like, when? Because we are expecting our second child, so trying to play the whole, when are you going? Are you actually gonna be here for the delivery?
Bring it in, guys, bring it in, bring it in.
And then now, because I normally do work 12-hour shifts and have on calls, I am now trying to find that, 8 to 5 job so I can pick up, which will then be 2 children from daycare before they close. The only thing I can say is I will have to judge it day by day as it comes.
There you go. Oh, yeah, pop curb.
There you go. Every deployment's different. We've already gone through 3, and together this will make the 4th one. But for him, I think this makes number
This will make
6.
4, 5, 6, yeah. Sounds better.
Yeah. The first time he went, we didn't have any kids, so that was really easy. Second time, we had our son. Halfway through,
he had a kid.
Yeah.
And then.
And the third one, we had a child, and now this one, we're going to have 2 by the time he gets back. So they're never the same, and you just never know what's going to happen during any of them.
I've got to see every step of the reconstruction of Iraq, from the initial invasion all the way to Operation New Dawn and restructuring of the government. It's one of those experiences that I don't think can really be put to words adequately. The bonds that are formed between soldiers downrange, those bonds have never been severed.
While I'm a nurse, there's a difference between me being able to separate myself from a patient versus him with his battle buddies who have been around him joking and everything. And one of them getting injured and or killed, that is one thing I've never really pressed on him to make him talk to me regarding those things. He has become more open because he has started to realize it's better to get these things out externally versus internal and fester on them.
Initially on in our relationship, I wanted to guard her from what I thought were the bad things of a deployment. But I think with every deployment, I think I share more.
My daddy is going to go see camels. None of my times are different because this is the same thing. That's mine and that's my dad's.
LJ was almost 2 the last time Dad left, and he got back, I think, about 3 months before he turned 3. He is 6 now. By the time his dad gets back, he'll be 7. Trying to figure out, the best way to explain, because this is the first deployment that he's gonna remember. I can show him on Skype, I can show him pictures all day long, but I can't make him be here. Sorry. But it's part of the Army, We signed up for it. See how it ends right there? There you go. Good job.
I'm in a position that they can't just leave behind. I'm a platoon sergeant. I got guys I have to lead to the front. So part of that is me being there. It's kind of hard to lead from behind.
My wife is an extremely special person, and I get to be a leader of soldiers, get to be a father, which is amazing, and know that she has my back and that she's there regardless.
My wife is basically the CEO, the chief financial officer. She is everything in our family.
She's been the rock. When the kids are down, she has to bring them back up.
He has allowed me to do my job, regardless of the time that it takes to do the job. But it's because I know that the home front's good.
So we like to say that families also serve. through repeated deployments, repeated moves, supporting the soldier, sailor, airman, Marine in their mission. Remember, a service member can do their job if they know their family is taken care of.
My wife has raised our family. I like to think I actually contributed from time to time when I was home and when I could do so. Spouses, male or female, you know, they provide the glue that allows that man or woman in uniform to go off, you know, knowing that what the family's doing behind is that they'll be cared for.
That's a good one. It's nice.
Yeah. What about this one? Oh, that's
Which one?
That's not bad.
My name is Catherine Joan French. My husband is Jeffrey Wellington French. He's a colonel in the United States Army. As a military wife or a spouse, you take one day at a time. And you try not to worry about the, when's he deploying, what's going to happen. That's how I deal with it. I think a lot of spouses do.
Colonel Jeff French. I'm an infantry officer in the U.S. Army, and I've been in the Army for 23 years. I come from a military family. My dad served for 23 years in the Army. My dad was assigned to U.S. Forces Caribbean, and so I attended Key West High School.
We're high school sweethearts. We met juniors in high school, and we started dating senior year.
We ended up staying together through the 4 years that we were apart while I was at the academy and she was attending the University of Florida in Gainesville.
It was so exciting. He was at West Point. I was at University of Florida. Back and forth, plane trips.
Kathy and I got married in '91, and her first move out of the state of Florida was to our first duty station together, which was in Anchorage, Alaska.
It was incredible. It was a neat experience at the beginning of our being in the military together. I guess we were married about 2.5 years before we had Kyle. So he was born in Alaska.
Kyle Jeffrey French. I'm 20 years old. I was born in Anchorage, Alaska. Then I went to Georgia.
We went to Fort Benning. And then from Benning, we went to Fort Hood.
Fort Hood, Texas was great. I had my company command as a part of the 1st Cavalry Division, and we also had our second child, Sarah, at Fort Hood.
My name's Sarah Catherine French, and I'm 17 years old. I have moved to many different places.
From Fort Hood, we went to Texas A&M. Jeff went to grad school there.
Got a master's degree in history, and then we moved up to West Point.
And that's where we had Anne Marie.
My name is Anne Marie Grace French, and I am 13 years old.
From West Point, we went to Fort Leavenworth in Kansas.
And then we went to Fort Campbell, which is in Kentucky.
I deployed with 132 Cav, RISTA, to the Diyala province of Iraq.
And then we went down to Fort Polk,
where I served as an observer controller, training units to deploy to Afghanistan and Iraq.
Then we moved to Fort Lewis in Washington.
And then I was selected to command 2nd Battalion, 1st Infantry Regiment, deployed to Afghanistan from 2009 to 2010.
Then Louisiana again, and then as soon as I graduated, they moved to Pennsylvania, right here.
And now I'm currently teaching with the Department of Command, Leadership, and Management at the U.S. Army War College.
I think I've been to 9 schools.
Maybe 6?
I went to multiple schools, some 2 for each state, and it was difficult starting, but most of the time people are welcoming and you start to get the hang of making new friends and putting yourself out there. My name's Sarah, I'm new here, what's going on, It's not as hard anymore. I think it was harder whenever actually I'd say it's harder now than when I was younger, making new friends and stuff.
You get to meet a lot of new people and you get to have a lot of friends, but then the bad thing is you have to move away from them every 1 or 2 years, so that's the bad part.
With all the moves, the deployments, you've just got to get a lot closer with your family. And I mean, they're your only support system, really.
Each move, I unpack the house, things up on the wall, curtains, because you want to make it a home for the kids as quickly as possible. So I drive them crazy, I know, for a little, about a week, and then everything, it looks like we've have been there forever. Here, y'all start putting some up. Fort Campbell. This is another Fort Campbell, Fort Polk. We were at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I found out he was going to Iraq. Anne Marie was 4. I think Sarah was 8 or 9. And Kyle was going into 6th grade, so like 12, I think.
I didn't really know too much about it. I was pretty young. So, I mean, I knew he was going to a war zone.
I remember we would write notes in a box and we'd send them to him every month. We would like write letters to each other a lot and stuff.
It's not like I didn't talk about it with them. It was more, hey, let's write Daddy letters, send cards. So just trying to have a routine for the kids was really important, I think.
I remember it pretty well, but not as well as the most recent one to Afghanistan.
I was at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and I was selected to take command, replacing a commander and taking responsibility for the unit less than 3 months before it deployed to Afghanistan. That was difficult, actually. We found out in the middle of the school year. So Kathy and I decided together that we were going to have Kathy and the kids stay back at Fort Polk, and I would go forward and take command in March. And then when the school year closed out, they would join me.
I remember thinking, like, this is out of the blue. This is like 3 months away, and then he was just going to be gone for a year. So I was pretty upset when I first heard it. I guess maybe a little bit mad, maybe. Not really at him. I mean, it's not his fault, and even I knew that, like, when I was in high school, but I was pretty upset.
It was challenging being apart for those last couple of months. They came up in June, and then we deployed in July, a couple weeks later.
He said bye at night, and I remember he came into our room and told us it'd be okay, and me and my sister shared a room, so I, slept in her bed that night, and, we just, I tried to comfort her because she's younger than me. I remember crying a lot, and then I'd keep going to his room, and then trying to say goodbye, but yeah. But he left the next morning.
As grown adults, my husband and I chose this life. We knew that we were going to do this, and we agreed to it. Then our kids come along, and they didn't, and they're just along for the ride. And, moving every year, 1.5 years or 2 years, picking them out of a school, moving them away from their friends. It's definitely harder with kids. It's much more emotional.
Military children are remarkably resilient. We see, families that are really thriving with as one military family said, the adventure of being able to engage, to have a sense of purpose, to move to new places. But there's also things that demands that are quite difficult. There seems to be a relationship between the cumulative deployment exposure that they've had and their stress symptoms over time. There are kids that this is taking a toll on.
Up to about 2 million children have been impacted by combat-related deployment separations from their service member parents since 2001. Not only have they been single deployments, but very often 2, 3, 4, or 5 or more deployments that families have faced, consistently managing with the challenges of the separation, the worries about the service member while they've been overseas in combat areas. And so this was our first experience with that, understanding the challenges that they faced and also how best to address those challenges.
When our son was just recently deployed, he's got 3 daughters, our 3 granddaughters, and the middle one, who is his best little friend, did not want to talk to him. And one day I asked her why. I said, McKenna, how come you don't want to talk to Daddy today? And she kind of just put her hand, and she said, I only want to talk to him when he's here, Nan. And I thought, out of the mouths of babes, because that's what we all want them to be there. And so I think we've done things to ease it a bit. It's not the natural way, so.
You got anything major happening today? Not that I know I'm gonna get the full turnover, but
My name's Veronica Corchado Holiday. I'm currently Command Master Chief. So that's E9 in the United States Navy, and I've been in the service for 19.5 years.
Thank you, ma'am. Hawaiian 1, what's going on?
I joined the Navy on June 12, 1995. It was an opportunity for me to get back to a country that gave a lot to my family. My family immigrated here when I was only 2 years old. My dad was working in a factory at the time. My mom was a housekeeper.
If you want to come see me right after colors.
That's perfect.
All right, thank you, appreciate you.
I first had the conversation with my mom and told her that I went to see a Navy recruiter and I'm gonna join the Navy. And she said, well, you need to tell your dad. And I said, well, you think he's gonna be okay with it? And she said, no. Back then, he really felt that the military wanted females for one thing, and that was they wanted women for their men. When I walked into the recruiter's office, that was on a Monday. And that Saturday, I went ahead and took my oath of enlistment. And I just picked up the phone and called my dad and let him know that I enlisted in the Navy and that I was leaving in 3 weeks. I knew that it broke their heart that I left, but I knew it was the right thing for me.
My wife is Veronica Holiday. My name is Michael Holiday. We met in high school. I think she was in 9th grade, I was in 10th. The rest is history.
We talked about having kids, and I went back to work and I told my LPO, and I said, when would be the best time for me to get pregnant? And she actually told me, she said, there's never a good time for you to get pregnant in the Navy. She said, so whenever you get pregnant, we'll go ahead and find what you'll do. It made me know that it's okay. And I think that's why I was able to be okay with having my second child and my third child, and I never missed a beat, and my promotions had never affected me.
My oldest daughter, Jasmine, she's 16. And my only son, Michael, he's 14. And then my youngest, Brianna, is 6 years old.
So Mike's been the rock in our family. He took the role of being mom and dad. We ended up making a decision early on, actually, when I went to my first full tour of sea duty on a ship. We were always gone. We leave on a Monday, come back on a Friday. And if I didn't have duty on that weekend, then I spent time at home, and then we would do it all over again. And I needed to know that our kids were in a good environment, safe environment, and we knew that as long as Mike was there, he would be able to provide that.
Thank you. It was tough at first because I was more worried about what people thought. I mean, as far as being a man, you know, like, you can't take care of your family. You can't be the provider. Your wife has to do everything. Hey, Jazz, here, put those cookies on the plate. I know what I do is good because when kids get straight A's or when they do good in school or when I'm able to volunteer coaching basketball, I'm able to go on field trips, which when you go, a lot of dads are not present. So I think that's kind of special to me where, the kids can say, my dad's there.
To be honest with you, I wouldn't be where I am in my career if he wasn't understanding and loving and caring and loving me unconditionally.
Hey, babe. Now I was calling to see, are you gonna make it home and we're going to the game together, or are you gonna meet us at the game?
The first time I had to leave, it was really hard. Mikey was about maybe 3 years old, and then Jasmine was 5 because she was starting kindergarten. She will probably tell you, Mom, you probably don't even remember my kindergarten year because you were always gone.
When they were young, they just, where's mommy, where's mommy? They didn't understand what mommy's doing, what's her job, what was her role. I'm dragging all the diaper bags, going to the doctor's appointment. I'm in a doctor's appointment with 20 women, and it's just me.
The second time was actually a lot, I wouldn't say a lot easier, but the second time around is when I found out I made Chief Petty Officer. And that was the first time that was gonna be like, okay, you're a senior leader now. You need to be the strong person for your sailors.
It was just really tough, just like seeing her go away and knowing that she wasn't coming back for a long time.
It's good to be busy because you don't think about it. You just come home, do your homework, go back to sleep, get up and do the whole thing over again.
Every night, every other night, let's sit down, take an hour, write your mother, and then I'll mail them in the morning, So that was it's kind of like our bonding time. She was on shore when Brianna was born. So that was good for her because she was able to enjoy kindergarten. And she didn't get that with Michael and Jasmine because she was gone when they were little.
Hi.
How you doing?
Brianna, I've been very blessed to be like, wow, this is what it's like. I was able to be part of the PTA. I was able to do certain things that I missed out on with Jasmine and Mikey. It was nice for me to be able to sometimes come and pick her up from school. And I'm not a stranger to the teachers. They actually recognize me as her mom. Where for Jasmine or Mikey, they'd be like, oh, that's your mom? So it's a good feeling.
Okay, enjoy.
I always tell people we're a military family. I'm not the only one serving, they serve too. It's not easy being a military family. It's not easy being married to a military member.
You know, I love her for the job she does, you know, fighting for our freedoms and stuff, but at the same time, I think we sacrifice our own ambitions, our own goals for that military member that is making a career of the military. And I think that's the biggest sacrifice. You know, you put your whole life on hold. And I think a lot of spouses do that. When she retires, I think that's when I'll take over. You know, she'll pass the torch to me, and I'll be able to do what I want to do, you know, career-wise. So, you know, I like it. You know, I like it. It's not bad. It's not bad.
We've put his career first, and it's something that even when he was younger that he's always wanted to serve, and we take a lot of pride in that. So my career just took a back seat. So yeah, I've definitely gotten resentful. You know, if he has to leave and come, it makes it easier for me if I at least have my own thing. But when, you know, you've left your family, you've left your job, and then you move, and then your husband's gone anyways. I mean, that's really been, I would say one of the biggest challenges.
You know, they can see on your resume that you're moving around a lot. They can put 2 and 2 together and assume that your husband is in the military. It's been a really big challenge, and it's been a challenge for me because I really love my job. Like, I love being a teacher.
My whole adult life has been in the Army, and my wife has been with me that whole time. And so she didn't pursue her own career. She very easily could have. She thought because of the requirements of the military, she wanted to be home with our children. And so she sacrificed incredibly in order for us as soldiers to do our job. We've made 24 moves in my career. And so, you know, the fact that they were always being uprooted, the fact that they were having to start over again, the fact they had to make new friends, you can't underestimate what our families do. So that's why this is a family business.
The entire unit, the entire brigade are very proud of you. You are well trained, you are ready to go. We're about to join our brothers and sisters who are already there, the Advon and Stranair, and I think you're ready, right? Whoa! Hey, I know it's tough business leaving families behind, but it's only for 9 months, and I say only. It's going to be a long 9 months, and I understand that. We're going to take care of you.
We had just finished packing up some containers for the deployment, and I got a text message. Take LJ to this person's house, and then this neighbor is going to give you a ride to the hospital. I'm at the hospital. So, of course, I panicked and called her and tried to figure out what was going on.
Started having trouble breathing with the pregnancy, and so the docs put me in the hospital for a couple of days. I've slowed down severely because it's just the issues with the lungs, and then some issues that have come up with my heart at the time as well. They found it's kind of kicked my butt.
Once my chain of command realized that she had some very serious medical conditions, go home, take care of your wife was the order I was given. They explained to me that the mission will still be there. It's not going away. It's just my mission's on pause for a couple weeks. And then once Austin comes and joins us, you know, I get to hit play and I get to move forward in my mission and continue my life as a soldier.
For me, as weird as it sounds, I felt a little guilty that I was taking him away from doing what he does. But then I unfortunately need to try to put myself a little bit first. Makes me feel better knowing that he's going to be here, because if I end up going back in the hospital, I know that he's here to help take care of our son, and that takes the worry off of me.
been super tough. It's already hard enough being a leader in the Army with trying to balance being a dad and everything else. But it's exceptionally hard being a leader and watch them go forward and you just stay behind. It's hard. I don't necessarily want to be here while they're not. I would much rather be forward facing in a seat next to them. And I know it sounds kind of cold and it sounds hard to say, but they're my soldiers. That's where my place is. I've never been on this side of the boat.
Hey, I'll see y'all over at T-Hawk. Bye.
I should be with my soldiers crossing the berm, and I'm not.
The core values of the military, regardless of the service, are about duty and mission and honor and connection and your combat buddies. And, you know, military service members really have to balance competing loyalties. You know, there's a tremendous connection to units and serving and getting the job done, and at the same time, feeling the pull of wanting to be present at home. So we ask a lot of these people.
There's a calling for that service member that they feel, you know, they're where they're supposed to be. As hard as it is sometimes for the family to understand that, I think there's also comfort for the family to know what they're doing is that important and that there is that bond.
This is kind of our little joint military shelf. All these shelves are pretty much a little bit of her and a little bit of me.
Jamie had like 2 coins. One was for a clean room, and the other one was for like good conduct or something. And then the rest of them were my coins, so I would always joke on him. And mine were PT, physical training coins, so I would always joke on him that I was the brawn and he was the brains, and we had the shelf to prove it. And then he had to go and one-up me and get blown up, and all these coins are now his, aside from 5 of them mixed in there that are mine.
I'm James Christopher Lee. I'm a sergeant, and I'm currently assigned to 2nd Battalion of 3rd Special Forces Group out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
I entered the military at age 27. I'd spent better part of about 8-9 years working as a journalist in New York.
I've been in the United States Army for almost 4 years exactly now.
My name is Lisa McSwain Lee. I joined the military about 4 years ago. I was 27, and at the time I was a high school biology teacher. One day I just decided I wanted to do something different. Jamie and I joke on it. I have a gypsy soul. I have a hard time staying in one place for a long time.
We met actually at language school out in Monterey, California, and I can remember seeing her around a couple of times, and finally mustered up the courage, so to speak, to talk to her a little bit more.
One thing led to another, and he asked me out, and the rest is history. We fell in love. We just had a little small wedding ceremony. It was fun. And then when I finished my training, I got orders to Fort Bragg. And then he followed on and he got orders to 3rd Group. So we ended up here together.
I signed into my unit, and within a few hours of being there, I got sat down and asked, hey, do you want to deploy? And my answer was yes, because that's why I enlisted. That's why I signed up to do the job.
It kind of came at a bad time. We were just getting settled in. I was excited about starting an official life with him. I mean, we had been married for a couple months at that point, but we weren't living together. In training, you still have to live in the barracks even if you're married. So he was living with his roommate. I was living with my roommate. So we were finally getting to come here and get an apartment together and live together and just start a life. But I knew he wanted to do it. I knew he wanted to go right away, so.
I arrived at the unit in February, and I was on a plane to Afghanistan by October. You can train for it as much as you want, but until that first shot cracks over your head, you're not really gonna know how you're gonna react once you're actively engaged by the enemy. And it is a very humbling experience to know that someone is actively trying to kill you.
He would call me at least once a week, and we got to Skype a couple times a month. He couldn't tell me a whole lot about what was going on or, where he was at the time, but when he told me that he would be going out on missions outside of the wire with a Green Beret group, I knew that he was going to be doing one of the more difficult, more dangerous jobs. And knowing what that entails, because we've been trained on it, it made me really nervous.
So I've been in country about 4.5 months, and we were rolling out on what was supposed to be a multi-day operation in what we knew was a major insurgent foothold. And we got hit in a near ambush. And there were God knows how many guys shooting at us all at once. It just kind of happened. It was extremely intense. AK-47s, machine gun fire from rooftops, rockets were going off. There was a lull in the action, and so I jumped back into the back of my truck, which was like an open-backed vehicle, and one of my team, my three-man intel team guys was back there with me. Christopher Landis, a specialist, a very good friend of mine. And as soon as I looked up, I could see like a blur in a corner of my eye, and I felt like a wisp of air go over my shoulder almost, and time just kind of stopped. The blast came, I could feel it, it jarred my whole body. And then slowly but surely, I could start to hear the gunfire and the explosions again. And I managed to get up to start shooting back, and that's when I realized that I couldn't use my right arm anymore. And I did the best I could with my left. I turned to check Chris, and he had been hit directly. And so he was really badly injured and not responsive at all. They knelt me down behind one of the rear tires. They started treating my wounds. But, rocket-propelled grenades leave all kinds of wounds. So the severity, the life and death of it wasn't lost on me. I knew what I was up against, and I knew that there was a pretty good chance I wasn't gonna make it out.
I got a phone call from my team leader saying, the commander needs you to come into the office. And I was walking up the stairs and I saw my commander and Jamie's rear detachment commander upstairs in my company. At that point, I knew. And I just looked at him and I said, no, no. That's all I could say. I just said no.
They medevaced me back to Bagram, and they were working on Landis, and they were treating his wounds. And they told me I flatlined 5 minutes after they rolled me in. The doc cut open my chest, cracked open my ribs, and reached in for what they call a cardiac massage, a manual restarting of your heart. And thankfully, my heart kicked right back into gear.
I know you can't read this, but for some reason I'm still writing it. It's all I have. I'm numb, I'm helpless, my heart is breaking, I'm lost. I need to see you, to hold you, to somehow feel like I'm there for you. Praying and praying and praying until I fall asleep.
I remember waking up and I remember asking, where's Landis? And the sergeant that was there with me just had to look me in the eyes and tell me he didn't make it.
I'm coming to you soon, baby. I'll be by your side. I will hold you until you feel no more pain. I'll hold you forever. Be tough till I'm there, and then we can be even tougher together. I love you with everything I have. I got a call saying Jamie's gonna be in Walter Reed tonight. So my parents put me on a flight. A lot of guys were on the ambulance when he came in, so I saw one after another get wheeled off, and it's kind of like a sickening feeling. I mean, you're trained to be sort of callous to that, but you don't really, doesn't really click, or it doesn't really set in until you see it. So that was hard. But then when Jamie came off, I was just so relieved to see him. I was so excited to see him that I didn't care the extent of Jamie's injuries at that point. I didn't care if he was, never gonna walk again, or, if he had trouble remembering things or whatever. I didn't care, because I still had him. And that was enough. So.
She never left my side, not from that day, until things really settled down in the hospital. I think I've been through something like 23 surgeries at this point in total, and hours upon hours of occupational and physical therapy. But, the mental stuff, the emotional stuff, how do you evaluate that?
Corporal Lee. Thank you. When the rocket came in, it actually detonated just beyond my right shoulder, so 1.5 feet or so behind me. So most of the blast trauma came up on my right side. And so thankfully I was wearing my, my helmet, my eye protection, my ear protection, and saved some very delicate areas, but I did get a lot of shrapnel wounds to the face. I lost a huge chunk of my jaw, so we've bone grafted, took a chunk of my left hip and put it up into my my upper jaw to build out that foundation. The explosion and all the shrapnel took about 30% of my right arm with it when it came through. Majority of my tricep came out, and all of this was pretty much an open wound down to the bone. Penetrating wounds to my chest, they effectively collapsed one of my lungs after the blast. And all the pressure that was building from that is what inevitably shut down my heart.
All right, any pain today?
No. I probably could have gotten out of the Army with the extent of my injuries if I wanted to, but
Perfect. So I'll go.
I fought through my rehab to get back to my team, to get back to my guys. I found something that I love. I found something that I'm passionate about, and even if it involves getting through another hurdle or something of that nature, then I'll fight through it, because this is what I want to do.
Jamie is a very stubborn New Yorker. I knew this when I married him. It's one of the traits that attracted me to him. He's very stubborn, he's very headstrong, he knows what he wants and he goes for it. So, as he was getting better, it really wasn't even a question of whether or not he was coming back. I knew he was coming back. If the Army would let him come back, he was coming back.
Really, in the Army, you have two families. You have your Army family, and then you have your biological family. And so we have to create the atmosphere that allows our soldiers to balance that. Because frankly, the bonds formed in combat are hard to explain. The reliance you have on each other, the person to your right and left, and those bonds that are formed through adversity and very difficult situations will never be broken.
My personal dream and goal has always been to lead soldiers in combat at the battalion level. So, although I was very anxious about the idea that there wasn't going to be a lot of time with the unit before we deployed to Afghanistan, and that we were going into an incredibly hostile and threatening environment, I was also excited about the opportunity that I was going to get to lead soldiers into all of those challenges. It is an immense amount of responsibility that you feel for every soldier, the command, and the mission. The best comparison I can come up with is what a parent feels for their child. A commander feels that way about each soldier in the unit and then the unit itself.
As the commander, he realized where he was going, but I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be when he left. You know, Jeff's responsible for 750 soldiers and trying to get them safely home. As far as the families, I felt the same way. He wanted to make sure that they were doing well. As a battalion commander spouse, you're an FRG advisor, and the responsibility weighed heavily.
We were able to talk to him almost every week. You know, we'd get on the webcam with him and we'd talk to him as a family.
He would never talk about the war over there because he wanted, whenever he was talking to us, he wanted to forget about it and feel more at home.
It was really hard because he's halfway across the world, so probably the hardest part was knowing that my dad wasn't always safe, so that's the hardest part.
Maywan District had not had a whole lot of consistent U.S. presence in it up to that point in the war. So we were going to be responsible for moving into that area of operations and carrying out our mission there. The day that we moved into that AO and started conducting our joint patrols with the unit we were replacing, we took our first casualties. That was probably the most difficult experience I've ever been through. You feel a certain sense of responsibility that they've lost their life while you were the commander responsible for them. And you're thinking about not only their lives, but you're thinking about those families at home. We had 75 wounded during the deployment. We had 10 fallen heroes, as we called them, that were not going to return home to their families, and was hard. It was hard to get through those times.
It was very difficult. You know, you just try to say a lot of prayers, think about the families. Kyle came to me because he would hear me, you know, conversations on the phone that I'd be having. So he'd come and give me a hug and, you know, say, "It's gonna be okay, Mom."
It was just tough seeing her upset, I guess, was the biggest indicator that something was actually wrong. I would come home, she had just gotten home from a funeral or something, and so that was kind of tough to see her go through that. And then the whole time, obviously, I was worried about my dad.
Jeff would share a lot with me about his soldiers and what they were going through. I wouldn't hear from him for a week or so, and I knew he was on a mission, so I would hide that from the children because I didn't want them to worry even more than they were. But you try not to worry about or think about what's going to happen.
There was a fight on the forward operating base inside a platoon, and one of the soldiers was taken to the aid station, and the sergeant major interviewed the soldier that had been beat up, and he said that there was some use of drugs and that he believed that there had been a murder or some murders outside the FOB. So we basically locked that unit down, and we called in the Criminal Investigation Division, and we had them begin a full and thorough investigation. Within the first, I'd say, couple days, we realized that there were probably 4 to 5 soldiers that were involved in some way, shape, or form in a number of illegal killings. As the commander, you're ultimately responsible for everything that your unit does and does not do. And for members of my unit to participate in those illegal acts and to take a life like that, it was crushing. It was absolutely crushing.
This came out at the end of the deployment. And even the families didn't really know exactly what was going on until after our soldiers were back home.
That was a long, drawn-out affair because it didn't just stretch through the remainder of the deployment. It went on during the courts-martial, intensive media scrutiny when we got back to Fort Lewis, Washington.
5 American soldiers accused of murdering Afghan civilians.
A rogue squad and a rogue platoon.
The killings were premeditated and targeted innocent people.
As much as possible, we tried to ensure that it was not affecting the kids. So although we shared with them and talked to them about it when they would ask us questions, we felt very strongly that this was a burden they didn't need to carry.
I heard something about what had happened, and I guess I just knew my dad, so I didn't really freak out about it.
I just knew that some stuff had gone on over there, and I knew that he, in his mind, was doing the best he could, and for me, that's all that mattered.
I had a lot of good people around me, for one thing. I had very good leaders within the battalion that helped me through that process. And the biggest thing that I relied on was Kathy.
It was heart-wrenching for him. There's no other way to explain it than, when you have something like this happen, it's devastating.
Roughly, we had 750 soldiers in the battalion, and there were 5 soldiers that were tried, court-martialed, convicted, and imprisoned as a result of those murders. As a commander, I was ultimately responsible for everything that occurred in my area of operations. And so the fact that the Army ultimately held me responsible for it, and I didn't end up getting promoted with my peers, I felt was appropriate.
Honestly, that was probably the most difficult thing we've ever been through.
My first name is Renner Patey Jr. I'm in the United States Air Force, active duty, Staff Sergeant. I wanted to join. I've always felt if I wanted to have the freedom of speech, I might as well be prepared to defend it.
Good pace, 249, 250. Keep it up, Jamal.
I'm Technical Sergeant Sherika Lachey Petty.
Good. Good job.
I joined the Air Force August 2000. I graduated high school May 2000. So basically, my entire adult life, I've been in the military. I feel like I belong, Not many people can say that. I was on my first deployment when I met my husband.
We actually met in Kyrgyzstan at Manas Air Base.
I don't know if he told you what I said to him.
I'm not gonna go into detail about how we met. Let's just say that she made the first move.
He's a heavy equipment operator, a dirt boy, that's what they call him. And he's a very, fit guy. And I just went over to him and I was, giving him a compliment. I wasn't flirting with him. I was just, telling it like it is. So yeah, that's how we met.
Happy birthday to Kylie.
What sounds a cat make? Meow.
We had Kylie October 13th, 2008. I call her my miracle child because I have a medical problem and the doctors told me not to ever get pregnant. And we decided to have Kylie, and when she was born, she's healthy, she's still healthy. I was diagnosed with CML, which is chronic melanogenous leukemia. And I take chemo pills, and I started that June of 2007. Military as a whole, it's been very beneficial for medical reasons. My prescriptions are more than $9,000 a month, so yeah. I don't know if I'd be able to afford it on the outside.
She has a beautiful spirit. She has a warm heart. Just to see her take great pride in her work, and she actually was one of the ones that pushed me to get my degree. We took classes together, sat beside each other like we were high school sweethearts. She keeps me inspired.
Hi.
Because of my medical condition, I can't deploy overseas. But they do have stateside deployments.
Hi, Pumpkin. Oh, my God.
I went on a stateside deployment. She was much, much younger. I've also had to go to school, and he had to care for her. It gets hard because I miss my baby. I miss her, like, even I'm here, and I miss her.
Have a good night. Good night.
Just like my wife, I've had 2 deployments since she's been born and a few TDYs, whereas I had to go away. A lot of people take for granted the holidays and time they get to spend with their children, the first steps, first words, first days of school. A lot of those things we miss out on. And getting a photograph of it, seeing it on videotape, or hearing about it word of mouth, is not the same as being there.
He just got back off of deployment, and I was going to be going next month to school. Thank God I'm not leaving now.
Good job.
If you're a dual military couple or even single parents, we have to have a family care plan.
Because at any time, anything can happen. Like when Katrina came, there was a possibility that I was going to have a stateside deployment. She may have to go, I may have to go, and both of us are going at the same time. We need to have someone in place that can care for our child. You remember when I was on my way home, coming from the desert? And she was like, "Daddy, I'm not supposed to tell you, but don't be surprised if there are balloons at the house when you get home and people hiding." Remember that?
No.
I bet you don't.
It can be challenging, but I feel that I'm fortunate. I was able to travel to so many different countries, and you have like so many opportunities to meet people you'd never meet. I met my husband 3,000 miles away. I'll say that's the best thing.
We love to travel, and it's great to experience different cultures and areas. And now my daughter's gonna get to travel.
The stability of a paycheck for us financially and the health insurance that's been afforded to us for our son, it's unlike any other.
Knowing we have such good benefits for the most part is really nice. I've never had to worry about taking my kids to the emergency room or to the doctor because I know we can. And I know a lot of people can't, so I definitely don't take that privilege for granted.
I was able to transfer my education benefits to my children. I get 36 months of education benefits, and I went ahead and gave Jasmine 12, Mikey 12, and Brianna 12. The fact that I was able to give my children my education money, it was just such a relief as a parent.
The big change that happened in the military over the last 50 years is the transition to an all-volunteer force. The force began to recruit people with financial incentives instead of relying on conscription. Today's military offers a wide array of benefits, beginning with its compensation package and then going from there. If you serve long enough to retire at 20 years or greater, you get a defined benefit pension for the rest of your life and health care for the rest of your life at a fairly low cost. This is an incredibly powerful set of benefits that helps to incentivize our all-volunteer force and get many of them to choose to stay in for repeated tours, even when there are hardships associated with those repeated tours.
My name is Peter Michael Noble. I'm a senior master sergeant. It's an E8 in the Vermont Air National Guard.
My name's Sarah Noble, and my husband's Peter Noble. In the Guard, we don't have to move around for his Guard job. So we've always lived in Vermont. We live where there's no bases.
We love this area.
Kira's first fish.
We like nature, we like the outdoors, being together, away from everything else.
He won't hurt you.
I'm a dental hygienist, so Monday through Thursday, I'm an 8 to 5 worker. Did you guys start the oven though? Yes. Okay. Traditional Guard duty is 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. He usually leaves on a Friday night, and then the girls and I are home for the weekend. Daddy's gone. We have animals to take care of and dinner to make. We splurge and we eat in front of the TV on the floor, and the girls hang out and we just do whatever we want. And when Pete's home, he runs his own business. That's what he does.
It's two very different lives. They don't overlap that much. It's very much, okay, it's time to put on your uniform and do this job, and then take it off and do that job. There's so many people around that don't even know I'm in the military. I'm self-employed in plumbing and heating with no employees. So I work all day and I work all night at my desk, and then I have my guard career. If drill weekend's coming, customers all know well ahead of time that I'm gonna be gone for this period of time, and here's who you can use for this and that, and come back and just right in full swing again. For the most part, I'm a civilian. And that's what's unique about the Guard. The Guard has been a staple. I graduated high school with my unit, graduated college with my unit, I got married with my unit. The kids were born into the Guard. So family life kind of adapted to the Guard. I have seen the world. I have 10 overseas deployments. I've been everywhere and done lots of things.
He's deployed many times, mostly humanitarian. It's usually 2 weeks at a time, but twice he's deployed for 6 months, once to Iraq and once to Afghanistan. The more recent deployment, when the kids are older, was very difficult. He was gone to Bagram in Afghanistan.
I kind of knew like what was going on, and it was a little more scary because like he was there and we couldn't really do anything to protect him. We just had to kind of trust him that he could take care of himself.
It scared me a little. I was afraid that he might be hurt in some way. I've never really had a lot of friends that had dads or moms in the military, so I had appointments with a lady named Danielle. She helped with my feelings. If I was feeling upset, there was a thing, you take a shoebox and you cut a hole in it, and like once you use like all the paper towels or something, you take the little brown thing in the center and put it in a box, and like when you're angry and all you feel like doing is just like yelling, you yell into the little thing so it contains the noise in the box. She said like to talk, let your feelings out, to talk to like your mom or someone that could help you with it, and so that helped a lot too.
This last deployment changed my attitude immensely. You can see them on the computer, but when they're standing there in front of you, those girls changed a lot in 7 months. Being away from them that long, I didn't want to ever go through that again. And this last time I promised them I'd never do it again. But I don't. We're making decisions as a family whether or not I'm going to commit to 3 more years, and if I do, there's potential for 1 more long deployment. So it's not my decision, it's going to be a family decision.
He's very close to his next promotion, and he's worked very, very hard to get here, and he's not sure he wants to give that sacrifice anymore.
If I sign that 3-year commitment for my last promotion, which I've worked 22 years and it's right here, we have to accept as a family the potential that I may have to deploy again.
I don't want him to quit. I like having him in there, and it makes me really proud of him.
I mean, I like that he serves our country and stuff, but it's hard having him not there for 6 months or any more than that. But yeah, I don't want him to go again.
I should maybe say no for family, but they know it's been my goal. And, well, financially as a family, it would be better too. It's retirement the rest of our lives as 1 rank higher. It's X amount of money to put the girls through private school, and my Guard income supports that. There will be completely done with, in 3 years, with private school, and all that money can go to health insurance, because we would lose health insurance.
Yes, we do this service because we believe in it, but it is part of our retirement. I can't lie about that. It'll be a retirement check when he's 65. So there's that financial component to it, and we've been lucky enough to have that.
I need to call my chief and tell him whether or not to submit my package. It's an interesting dilemma that I spent a lot of time thinking about.
In the aftermath of Vietnam, the senior leaders of our military made a deliberate decision to move capabilities into the Guard and Reserve so that if the nation went to war again, it would have to call upon its Guard and Reserve, and in so doing, connect to America. So along comes this long protracted conflict. We have to call upon the Guard and Reserve in significant numbers and more than once, right? So it has and will continue to put a special kind of strain on families of guardsmen and reservists.
When you think about those reserve component airmen that had a mindset of a strategic ready reserve, maybe, you know, a 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year commitment, called up when the nation needs them, but a steady state like this, I think, is unprecedented, and it changes that paradigm. And that changes the paradigm on the employees that support them. It also changes this paradigm of how often I think men and women thought they would be gone and their families thought they would be gone to support what our nation needs us to do.
Guard and reserve families are in situations where kids are continuing to go to school, where the children in the classroom or the parents or the teachers may not even be aware of the fact that their parent is deployed. So I think they're at the risk of being hidden families coming from communities that may even be less aware or less available or less resourced to deal with the challenges that they or their families are going to face.
I'd like to have Pete Noble come front and center, please.
Be it known to all who see these presents that Peter M. Noble has been inducted into the membership of the Chiefs Group upon elevation to the grade of Chief Master Sergeant in the United States Air Force.
This is his goal. This has been his goal from day one. And when you're that close to a goal, you just don't give up, or you don't let that person give up.
When he went in the Guard, that's what he wanted to be. He wanted to be a Chief Master Sergeant. That was his goal, so we wanted him to go for it. He wanted to, too. He just needed us to tell him that it was okay to do it. I felt really proud, and hearing everything everybody said about him is true. He's really a good person.
Chief Noble, congratulations.
I'm not excited if he does have to deploy. I know he has to do it, but I'm kind of hoping he doesn't, because he said he wouldn't, but I get it if, like, he has to.
We were very ready to hang up my uniforms. But to have my goal so close to within reach, it was a major family decision whether or not to commit to another 3 years to be able to live out this goal. And I greatly appreciate you guys being behind me and allowing me to us to do another 3 years.
3 years is his commitment time, and in 3 years, he'll retire. And after that, I don't know, we'll have to see him every weekend. It may be torturous. I mean, I laugh about it because we've lived like this for so long. I don't know what it's gonna be like when he's home all the time with us.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right. All right. All right.
He showed up September 23rd at 8:25 in the morning.
Your time, man.
He pretty much has kept our attention and I guess almost stolen your heart. What a cute little thing.
You stole another part of it I didn't think I had.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get attached to a new little thing like this. And then just knowing that, you know, it's hard to take full enjoyment out of every little moment when you know that every moment leads to one less that you're about to have for a little while. But I've heard and I've seen a bunch of good things from downrange as far as what our guys are doing down there. And I want to be part of that. That's the whole reason I'm in the Army. But it's gonna be very hard to say goodbye to them.
Come here, Alge. Do a selfie.
LJ's an amazing little guy. We've been doing a lot of stuff together. And I've been trying to spend as much time with him as I can. All right. Here we go! Here we go! I think he grasps I'm leaving, but I don't know if it's readily hit him yet.
Oh, they're shooting pumpkins. Look, they're shooting pumpkins.
It's just kind of a roller coaster. You're happy one moment because you're seeing the way they interact, and then the sad moments hit you because you realize the timeline, and this is the day.
That was easy. Well, we just have to call me.
All right. For us, the hardest part is right now. You know, those last couple of hours. It just literally feels like I can't catch my breath.
It's not just the deployment, but now I've got, you know, this little one that I've got to worry about, and then still trying to make sure that LJ is taken care of and that he understands and feels that he has the support behind him, so it's just hard. But like you said, once he's gone, we kind of switch into a different mode and we know what we gotta do.
What are you doing to yourself, boy? I love you. You good for Mom, okay? Listen to Grandma. See you in a couple months. Where are you going, man? Come on, boys.
I will. I'll see you later.
The hardest thing is when they get on the bus. That's the hardest part. But other than that, the whole morning you just try not to think about it. And then it's just hard because when it cranks up and it pulls away, you don't want to be pessimistic, but you have to be realistic. And then you just have to wait from then on out.
I think the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and no matter how many times I do it, it never gets any easier, is just to root my feet to the ground. When those buses and those planes leave. Because even though they may come home, they may come safely and uninjured, the person that you say goodbye to never really comes back. That person's not gonna come back.
That was probably one of the worst mornings of my life, having to comfort my kids, knowing he wasn't going to be back for a while.
I think she called me like 5 times before I even got on the plane and just to tell me she missed me. Your daughter wants to tell you she misses you, and it's heartbreaking.
Knowing that I'm not going to be there for the little things, you know, like birthdays, activities at school, awards, stuff that a father and mother should be there for.
I know in my family with my son, he missed his daughter's birthday, you know, that was so important to her. And I know at Christmas time, you know, I usually have 25 family members for Christmas Eve dinner. And so I know as a mother, we all tried to act like everything was just normal, but there was the empty seat at the table. We all knew that Bo was gone. And so this is what military families go through over and over again.
My name's Misty Sue Gonzalez. My husband's name is Romero Gonzalez. He's in the Marine Corps, and he's been in for almost 18 years now. I have a sense of pride that my husband is one of the few good men. And it's just been a journey that has its highs and its lows, but I've loved every minute of it. We moved from Texas, where we met, to Jacksonville, North Carolina. From there, he was put on recruiting duty in Roswell, New Mexico. We then moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, had our first son. From there, we went to Oceanside, California. He deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. Pretty much back to back. There was 4 months in between those two deployments. So we didn't have a whole lot of time to reintegrate before he was gone again. So that was a really, really long year and a half.
I should be able to call you tonight. It depends if the phone's working or whatever. If it's not, then I won't be able to, but I'll still try to.
Say I love you so much.
So much, right?
Say I miss you.
Miss so bad.
Alex was pretty small then. Shrek was the big movie that was popular at the time. And when he would ask me about Daddy, I would tell him he was working far, far away. And so to him, he said, so Daddy's in the far, far away kingdom? A far, far away kingdom? And that was a happy place to him. So there was no fear. It was just, you know, missing Daddy. After he got home, we went to Okinawa, Japan for 3 years. I had my daughter in Japan. He missed her birth. And we moved to San Diego almost 2 years ago now. And I've had our third child. Again, he was not present for that. I believe at that time he was in Africa. Luckily, he had Wi-Fi, so we were able to Skype the day that I had Hunter. So now we're just waiting for him to come home.
1, 2, 3, jump.
I was a little worried that my 2-year-old would kind of forget who he was, but she hasn't.
Let's go wake up Bubba.
We talk about him all the time, and she knows he's on a big boat, and she sees a picture of him or hears his voice, and she knows exactly who he is.
Baba.
Is he in there? Give him some hugs.
My husband's on the USS Boxer, so it's not like being in Afghanistan or Iraq. But there are definite dangers, and Alex does understand that at this point. So I think it's a little bit more difficult for him to be at ease while Dad's away.
It's sad, but you know that he's doing great things. So it kind of makes you happy, but a little bit sad at the same time. It just makes you happy that he's helping the country, but it makes you sad that he's like gone and away, but you know he'll always come back.
Cup. Juice cup.
I just kind of went into it thinking he's going to be on a ship, on a computer, mostly every day. So he should be able to Skype almost any time and email all day long. And I mean, we've literally gotten a handful of phone calls over the last 8 months and a handful of Skype video calls.
It's been maybe 3, 4 months. Well, more like 2 months since I've heard from him. So I think he just has some pretty horrible water reception.
Alex, Lily, would you like some milk?
Yes, please.
It's 18 days from today, and it's kind of surreal. I know it's coming, but it's just a little nerve-wracking to not know what to expect, and just the excitement and anticipation, and it's been growing for months and months and months, and everything is so different. From the time he left to the time he came back, I was about 7 months pregnant, and we had 2 kids, and now I've got 3. It's gonna take some time for him to just jump back into our routine and get everything back on track again. But we're ready to get it started.
Are you excited about Dad coming home?
Yep.
It's 18 days. Can you help her count to 18?
Say 1,
2,
3, 4,
4,
5.
5.
It's
horrible when they leave. It is horrible when they leave, but nothing compares to when they come back. Just nothing compares to when they come back.
Oh my gosh, it's very emotional for me. The children just relieved, crying from joy, not from, sadness.
Makes me want to tear up just even thinking about it. You're about to start your life with them again.
And it's gonna be rough, but just those 5 minutes even, that it's just absolute perfection. That's what it is. It's absolute perfection.
So it was kind of a chaotic morning. Everybody's nerves were on edge. It was such a big day. Just so nervous, so nerve-wracking. The whole experience is so exciting, and you have butterflies like you're in grade school again. And you just can't wait to put your arms around him and for that moment that you've waited for so long.
When I first saw her, I was absolutely blown away because, it was exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be able to be there and hug my family and finally get to see my son and really just the stress of being away and being gone to finally be over.
How do you like to have a chocolate cake?
It's an amazing, amazing feeling. You can finally just take a deep breath. They're safe, they're home. And now it's the flip side of the deployment that you have to work on.
Misty, we got 2 bottles.
For the first couple weeks, it was really rough. He just kind of felt as if we had kind of moved on without him.
When I finally came home, I really felt like I didn't have a place at home. You leave, your wife's pregnant, you come home, there's another member in your family, somebody, that is your son, but you don't have that relationship with them. And I think that was one of the hardest things that I had to deal with.
No.
It was hard for me to say, you know what, for the last 8 months, I've been a decision maker for the Marines. And then to come home and pretty much sit on the bench is the best way to put it.
You can play good?
I don't know if my wife really understood that,
Don't hurt nobody.
but I know we had a lot of tension.
Yes, sir.
Be easy.
Finding out that he felt disconnected from the family, when I felt we had waited every single day for him to come home, and then he came home and felt like we hadn't, I think was where maybe the resentful feelings came from, because I thought, what more could I have done besides flying to one of the ports he was at in the Philippines or something when he was there for 10 hours or whatnot? What more could I have done to have shown him that we were right here and waiting with open arms?
While I was gone, I had to take myself out of my family's life, my involvement into what they do.
As I'm out doing my job on a day-to-day basis, you get into the routine, and sometimes not communicating to your family is part of your routine. And the next thing you know, you have an opportunity to communicate to your family, but then you don't utilize every opportunity for whatever reason. So
it's scary, and it's really, really difficult to explain, I guess. You feel as if maybe everything really could fall completely apart. You're just put in kind of we know each other, we love each other, we always have, we have a family, but you almost have to get to know one another again.
Everybody meets at the airport, everybody's happy and smiling and saying, glad to have you home. And then basically on the car ride home, for me anyways, it's always kind of been an uneasy feeling. Not really sure how to how to start conversations again, what to talk about.
Being gone that long, coming home, I feel like a stranger because things have changed. I talk to him over the phone. It's hard to get acclimated at first.
Honestly, it's kind of awkward. It's awkward for me. It's like we have to, I don't know, learn how to be a family again. I don't know.
Finding a routine is probably the hardest thing. It's like your family, they've been on autopilot the whole 8 months. You sit back, you just observe for the most part, let them go about their routine, and you try to kind of settle back into their routine.
I think almost for all families, homecoming is truly a joyous moment, but it's a moment. And, after the bus comes in and after the service member gets in the car and you drive home and you start managing with kind of dealing with that reintegration, then you're really talking about facing the reality of being back together and also catching up, and how you reconnect in ways that everybody feels like, okay, well, we did have unique experiences. How can they be valued? But how can we come back together now and reform as a family with you back in the family?
The post-deployment is the most stressful on the service member and the entire family. Roles have changed, family dynamics have changed, and the service member is trying to fit into a family that has learned how to be a single team without him or her. So I think Americans would find it interesting to know that the most stressful time for a family is right after that remarkable, tearful reunion we all love. And most families come out of it fine, but it is hard, arduous work, heartbreaking work for the family.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, Command Sergeant Major Chris Ferris will transfer responsibility of the Senior Enlisted Leader, United States Special Operations Command, to Command Sergeant Major Bill Thetford.
I'm Command Sergeant Major Chris Ferris. I am currently the Senior Enlisted Leader for the United States Special Operations Command, and I've been in 30.5 years.
I'm Lisa Ferris. My husband is the Command Sergeant Major for U.S. Special Operations Command, and we've been married for 23 years.
Chris Ferris is a force to be reckoned with. He has been in a position of leadership at every level of command, from section leader to the Command Sergeant Major of the entire Special Operations enterprise. Chris will tell you he didn't make it this far on his own. Without the support and constant encouragement of his wife, Lisa, 3 decades of service, multiple deployments, 2 children, you've always been there, providing that solid foundation.
For so long, I had this image of what I was supposed to be as a military wife. And I always wanted to be an example, to represent him well and support him well. And when things started going bad, I reach out to other people and say, how are things going? What's going on with you? And it seemed like the token answer all the time was, I'm fine. And I wasn't fine, but I felt like if they were, I had to be.
Good morning, everybody. It's really good to see you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Command Sergeant Major Chris Ferris. So Lisa and I are here to share with each of you the story of our marriage and what this war did to us. How ugly things were in my house and how ugly and mentally abusive I was to my family. When I had the epiphany that my perception, my lens of the world, the way I'd been viewing my family, my career, the whole 9 yards was skewed. I'd had soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines come into my office and go, Sergeant Major, my wife is putting this pressure on me to not deploy as much or to get out of the military, and God, we're at war. And I'd look at them, I go, yeah, my wife's doing the same thing. Can you believe this? And I thought about all those conversations where I had counseled people, I don't know. Not every marriage works out. If you got to cut them away, cut them away. I felt so guilty looking back on that. And it's like, how do I reach all these people that I'd had these conversations with to try to set the record straight?
I mean, you're lonely when they're away, but when they walk in the door and you're even lonelier than when they were gone, you know something's broken. I didn't want anybody else to ever be by themselves, to feel like they were failing. And I wanted them to know that it was okay to suffer through things and reach out towards other people and to admit that it's hard, because it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. When I met Chris, he told me he couldn't really tell me what he did. He couldn't tell me when he was coming and going, where he'd been. He did give me a little briefing on what was kind of expected of me. And, I just thought about how cute he was and how much he made me happy. And I figured I could live with that.
As we got more serious and I had asked her to marry me, I said, look, I'm in special operations. I can disappear from thinking it's going to be a normal day at work, not come home that night. When we do deploy, we're going to be incommunicado. And I asked her, accept what it is that I do, and please don't ever, ever put me in the position of having to choose one or the other. For ground forces guys, you train and you train and you train to go and meet the bad guys. And I had yet to be tested. So we deployed to Mogadishu, and I was excited. You're nervous, but when we finally made contact on those first missions and I got my first couple of kills under my belt, I was like, okay, good, I passed the test. There's a saying from the Civil War about meeting the white elephant, and I'd met the white elephant. And there's a certain amount of pride that comes with that.
Somalia was hard because it was the first time that he'd really gone away where I felt fear and the reality of what he really did. He could really end up not coming home. And it made me really reflective of what I'd gotten into. I thought, what have I done? What decisions have I made? Has these choices really affected what's going to happen to my children? What if they never know their father because they were very small at the time?
When 3 October rolled around, the call came out that the first Black Hawk had been shot down. Even from that standpoint, you still don't have foresight of what's getting ready to happen, and it wasn't until later on that a resupply helicopter came in, and the amount of ground fire coming from enemy AKs drowned out the sound of the door gun that you sort of realize, wow, there's really a lot of people. And that was the first time that I began to get really, really scared. And the thought was, okay, I'm gonna kill as many of these people as I can before they kill me. Wow, did I just admit that I was gonna die today? And when I came to the realization that I was not gonna get out of there alive, because I had already been shot once, fortunately it didn't go all the way through my body armor, but it sure did hurt, and sure did scare me a lot. I said goodbye to my wife and my 2 little baby girls, and just asked the Lord, don't let my family ever see film of them dragging my body through the streets of Mogadishu. When I accepted that I was gonna die, I was engulfed by the greatest peace and calm, frankly, that I've ever felt in my life. And the fear went completely away.
When he first came back, it was a beautiful thing. I mean, I saw my children reconnect with their dad, and I was just happy to see him and hear him breathe beside me at night when he was sleeping. After a few months, he started having nightmares, and they concerned me. I mean, he would toss and he'd turn and he'd talk in his sleep. And one night he woke me up because I couldn't breathe. And he was on top of me and had my face pushed in the pillow and kept telling me to get down, I've got your back, I've got your back. And I remember I had to struggle and fight to get out from under him. And the next morning he got up, and I told him that if he didn't get help, I wasn't gonna sleep in the same room with him anymore. And he did go seek some help, but there was a little bit of difference in him. I mean, there was something in him that definitely died, that made him keep us at arm's length. And I felt that and sensed it, but I was just so grateful that he was home and that I had the opportunity to continue a life with him when others didn't have that opportunity.
That became my mechanism to always deal with going out in combat, just accept the fact that tonight you might die. You have to maintain a certain distance then, because in order to flip that switch in an instant, and I mean it's literally in an instant, subconsciously I had to keep enough distance between me and my family, because what if they ever meant so much to me that I couldn't flip that switch?
So now, September 11th, 2001 happens. At this point, I'm the operations sergeant major at the unit, and I deployed in this war for the first time to Afghanistan in April of 2002. Because of my rank and my positions, The longest I had at home in my house, head on pillow, in any single year between 2002 and 2011 was 89 days.
We had talked a lot about, being a team and sticking together and supporting each other. I wanted to do what I could do on the home front. I knew he had to do what he needed to do. I was realistic enough to know that our lifestyles were changing and it was going to be for a long time.
I think in the early years of the war, we weren't taking that many casualties. So, I'd come home and Lisa and I would have our pillow talk and we would share. But I was glad to be home and, see my girls.
He would come and go and, he still kept me a part of his life and he shared things with me and as much as he could without telling me the details, but I felt a part of him. I felt a part of the process.
For me, the change came when frankly, Iraq changed. In 2005, we did the surge into Al Anbar province. For our task force, what that began over the next 3 years was over 30 killed in action per year for the next 3 years. It doesn't even count all of the wounded. And you get a big sense of guilt of that because you're part of issuing the orders. But then when I had to do my first notification, that also played into it. Those are horrible.
I started to see the change in him several months into it. He started to withdraw again. And I knew that he couldn't come back from seeing all this and being a part of this and the notifications and all of this stuff without being different. But there was that bit of hope that, everything would get back to normal again because it had. And when he started coming back and that connection started to go away, that's when the panic in me started.
I would look at my watch, what time is it over there? You could never let it go even when you were home and, Daddy do this and Daddy do that. Honey, do this, and honey, talk to me, and honey, are you okay? And I go, look, I just want to be left alone. I don't know if they thought, well, surely he doesn't mean that because I'm a wonderful little daddy's girl. No, I really want to be left alone. Just leave me alone.
I just want to forget the war for a little while. And that low-level anger became more and more and more. And every time I'd come home, I kept hearing these stupid, silly teenage girl conversations. And I'd think, God, what is wrong with them? Don't they understand what the hell is going on in the world, what's really important? And I finally lost it. And I got up and I went into that room and I unloaded on them. I looked at them and I said, what is wrong with you? Do you have an idea what the hell's going on right now? Do you even know what time it is in Iraq? That there are people out on target right now risking their lives for you? The three of you disgust me. And I walked out of the room. And when I told my family, my two girls, and my wife that they disgusted me, at that moment in space and time, I meant it with every fiber of my being and my soul.
It's funny, everybody thinks that should have been the changing point, but there have been so many outbursts at that point. I remember my youngest daughter looking at me and saying, oh, that's just Dad, just ignore it, it's okay, Mom, because he had exploded so many times before. We were used to that. I remember feeling desperate one day and thinking we're living like roommates. And I remember walking in and he was sitting in the Carolina room at home and I sat on the edge of the couch and I got his attention. He was kind of annoyed because he was watching TV. And I said, honey, we're living like roommates. Is this really what you want to do? And I remember him sitting up and smiling at me as if I had given him a gift. And he tells the story that he felt that I had made a pact with him at that moment, that I understood that he was doing what he was supposed to do. And I was going to take care of the home front, and he was going to fight the war. And then when all of it was over, we reconnect and we work out the details of everything else. And I knew at that moment I'd lost him. It was horrible. I felt betrayed. I felt that he'd not kept up his end of the bargain. And I felt so alone. And it made me wonder why I was doing it anymore. And it was kind of the last straw. At that point, the only thing I could do to make myself feel better was to become so angry with him that I wouldn't need him in my life anymore.
In combat, there's a precision and a focus that is unavailable anywhere else in life. I mean, when you are in a combat environment, you are, as we say, focused like a laser beam on the mission, on the team, on the man or woman to your left or right. But the dichotomy, the difference between life in a combat zone with the simplicity and focus of your team and life at home, which is complex and sometimes difficult and challenging with your team, which is your family, are very different. And so migrating back and forth between those experiences is challenging.
We have men and women that their entire adult lives have been serving their country. They have started families, and they've never spent more than 6 months with that family at any one given time, over 13 years of that. And so how do you get to normal, and what is normal for that family? So when you think about how men and women come back, and when you think about the strain that puts on relationships, when you think about the strain that puts on young children, I mean, I think some people have survived it. I think a lot of, unfortunately, families have not survived it and have broken up. When you think about the suicide rates, when you think about the domestic violence that exists, when you think about a lot of those behaviors that are just detrimental to good, healthy lifestyles, they take place in our community. And you can certainly attribute a bit of that, if not in some cases all of that, to what these men and women have to step up to.
Much has been said about Lisa and I going out and telling our story. If you've ever heard it, you know why we do it. It was a sense of obligation. Never forget what the family was worried about. Honey, I love you. The turning point came in early November of 2009. Our youngest daughter's birthday is on December the 27th. And I was packing to go back over to Afghanistan. And she asked me, Dad, are you going to be home for my birthday? And I told her, well, no, I'm not home for your birthday. I spend Christmas over there with the troops. And she said, okay, Dad, do you know how old I'm going to be? And I said, yes, you're going to be 18 years old. And she was like, well, I'm glad you know that. And then she asked me, Dad, do you know how old I was the last time you were home for one of my birthdays? And I thought about it for a second, and I said, no, I don't remember. And she told me, Dad, I was 10, and turned around and walked out of the room. And as I finished packing and got on the plane, and you got plenty of time on the flight to Afghanistan to think about it, the next thing that really hit me was I tried to think back, what have I missed in their lives? And unfortunately, I had very little. And so it began a lot of reflection for me. And then just before Christmas of that year, went to the commander and shared a lot of things with him and said, I really need to go home. And so I came home that Christmas to try to begin to set things straight.
He walks in and he's chatting and he's talking, and he was pleasant, he was engaging, he was funny. He was this guy that I married, and I hated him for it. Because you know where my mindset is. Doggone it, you're not going to tear down this wall. I'm prepared for you, and I resisted every step of the way.
What I wanted to do was use the holidays to try to show my family something in Dad has changed.
It was harder for me to let down my guard because I didn't want to be hurt again. But when he made up his mind he was going to change, he did everything in his power to change. He started to include me in everything and have conversations. He started to tell our story by himself a year before we told it together. And when I saw him doing that, it was just an amazing thing to watch, to get out in front of his peers and say, I screwed it up, I did it wrong, and admit his faults. I just saw him dig in and just do what he needed to do to prove to me that regardless of whether I came along with him, he was going to change. And I didn't want to move on in my life without him in it. There's
saying in the military that leaders need to lead by example. And too often I think leaders in the military think that means, make sure your haircut's exactly perfect and make sure your uniform's exactly perfect. Now, probably one of the best examples that you can do is share the experiences so that your troops don't go through what you've gone through. I want the soldier, sailor, airman, Marine to wake up and go, wow, I am putting mission first. I'm exactly like the CSM is. I'm that selfish guy that does resent my family and that they're pulling at me. From Lisa's side of the house, we want the spouses to understand you're not alone in this, and quit telling each other that you're all fine. It's okay to admit that these problems are going on in the home. And I'm a very big believer that readiness, the coin of the realm for the military, that ability to be trained and equipped to go and do what our nation needs us to do, it doesn't begin in the team room. It doesn't begin out on the rifle range. It begins at home.
You know, I look when Marty was younger in the Army. I mean, there were deployments, but nothing like, we've encountered now. So when he first went for, I didn't see him for 14 straight months. And that's incredibly difficult to not. But I think for us, at that point, we were married, 25 years, 30. So there's something to fall back on, too. I think for these younger couples, it's incredibly difficult. You get married and he's gone for a year, and he's home for 10 months, he's gone for 15 months, he's home for There's not a great foundation there yet. So it's definitely hard on military families.
What do you see out there? You see the big truck?
That's your own friend right there.
Those are our friends who are moving all of our stuff to Japan for us, huh?
Yeah.
Are you excited to move to Japan?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
We're going to Iwakuni, Japan, for 3 years. We're having to move quicker than expected. We were supposed to have about another year here. But, we can use it as an opportunity for a fresh start. New house, new place, new everything.
After I found out that I had gotten selected for promotion, I had to talk to Misty about it. I've felt that our relationship has been more important than my career. And if I had to get out just to save our relationship, I would. Especially coming off this deployment and both of us having such a challenging time during the deployment. I didn't feel like we were going to be able to survive a 2-year separation. Hey, Misty. Yes. Lily says she's ready for a nap. It's been almost 6 months, and it feels a lot more like we're getting back to us, back to normal.
We both had to just kind of reevaluate where we were hitting brick walls and just try to knock it down little by little. Just being able to be around one another and experience life together, it brought us back to being on the same page again, emotionally and with our relationship. It's just, I guess I would say time has been our friend. It's been the biggest factor in just allowing us to get to know each other again.
Hammer? Yeah.
It really feels real now. The house is empty and all of our things are gone, and the next thing is to get us on a plane to Iwakuni ourselves, and I'm excited. I'm really, really excited for this next adventure.
I'm expecting at least one more deployment, and then hopefully nothing crazy happens. I get to retire. And it's all us after that, so.
Humphrey? Good boy. Good boy. We want to go up down here and then down to the water?
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's that little...
Jamie broke the deployment news to me slowly. He first told me that it was a possibility that they would deploy. Then he told me that there was a date that he would potentially deploy. And then I found out that the date he was deploying was soon. And it's been rough.
Come here, come here, come here. I didn't fight to return to active duty after my injuries just to sit in garrison and ride a desk. I want to be a full contributor to my unit. And in order to accomplish that, I need to be downrange with them. I need to be there to get my hands dirty and to help support them. So we'll be going back to Afghanistan, which is obviously where everything happened initially for me. And it is a little weird going back after everything that happened there. But at the same time, there's plenty of people that have gone out and lost guys out there, and I'm no different from them, and they've been able to get back on the horse and keep driving forward. So that's what I'm trying to do.
It's come up a little quicker than anticipated, but I've kind of eased into the idea of it, and I'm okay with it. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be easy. It's not, an optimal situation, but it is what it is.
If I had any apprehension at all, it would be because leaving Lisa after everything that's happened is a difficult proposition. We're still working our way back to some semblance of normal in certain aspects of our lives. Certain things have come back pretty easily, pretty quickly, and other things take time and take work and take effort. And the fact that I'm going to be displaced for, months on end now, I don't say that it sets us back, but it certainly puts a halt to the progress we're making and getting back to being, the couple that we want to be and the family that we want to be. But that said, I'm just happy that they look at me as an asset and that they want to bring me out because I can help.
Head back?
Yeah, let's wrap it up and head back.
There's a lot of emotion and feeling behind Afghanistan for us. It's scary. It's nerve-wracking. Yeah, of course, like the Lisa in me wanted to say, no, baby, don't leave again. This is scary. I want you to stay. But this is his job, and this is what he does. But I think I'll be good.
I will never forget when Kyle actually said, Mom, I want to go to West Point. Yeah, it was very surprising. I was really proud of him, but also, oh my gosh, my child's going to be in the military.
I, for a long time, said I was never going to come here. I did the whole moving thing. I didn't really like it growing up. And then I was a junior in high school, and I job shadowed my dad. I checked out the whole military thing, and I realized I wanted to do it. His first reaction was to say, you don't have to do this if you don't really want to. So that was his first reaction, but after I explained how much I wanted to go and the reasons I wanted to go, he was definitely supportive of it.
I am both proud and I'm excited for him because I think he's got the kind of character and the leadership capability to thrive in that type of environment. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that I wasn't a little anxious about the fact that, he's chosen to move down this life journey and to some degree follow in his old man's footsteps, but he's moving into a much different period of our nation's history than I came into in the early 90s. He's going to face some significant challenges.
One 1% of Americans are fighting these wars, but 99% of Americans need to support these military families.
My husband is Whit Featherston. He's a lieutenant junior grade in the Navy.
Gunnery Sergeant Ladarian Leonard. I've been in the Marine Corps for 16 years now.
My name's Jenna Matson, and my husband is Adam Matson, and he's a Master Sergeant in the Air Force.
My name is Megan Madge. I am married to Joe Madge, who is a Lieutenant JG.
I've been in the Coast Guard 14 years now, a little over 14 years.
Our daughter's name is Samantha Van Fossen. She's a specialist in the Army.
My name is Carly Marie Thomas, and my husband's name is Dylan Craig Thomas. He's a corporal in the Marine Corps, and he's in his 3rd year.
My name is John Aluyan. I'm in the United States Air Force, and I've been in the Air Force for 14 years now.
My mom, she works in the Navy. Navy Chief, Navy Pride, hoo-yah.
I've been in the Air Force approximately 16 years.
My name's Aaron Castillo. My husband is Gilbert Castillo Guzman. He has been in the Marines for about 12 years.
Jeanette Rincon. I'm an E6 in the Coast Guard, and I've been in almost 13 years.
My husband, Dan Carrion, is a Chief Warrant Officer in the Marine Corps, and he's been serving about 16 years now.
You've heard the phrase, we recruit individuals, but we retain families. You can get someone to come into the military for themselves, but if you want to keep them in, you better reach out and make sure the family knows that they're an important part of the enterprise. So it's absolutely not a cliche that the strength of the armed forces of the United States is as much about its combat capability as it is about its families, because in the absence of family strength, we'll have a tough time attracting the kind of young men and women we need.
The Homefront is available on DVD. To order, visit shoppbs.org or call 1-800-PLAY-PBS. Funding for the Homefront was provided in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Additional funding was also provided by the Boeing Company. Boeing recognizes that service and defense of our nation is a mission that extends to entire families. For nearly 100 years, Boeing has been deeply committed to supporting our nation's military personnel, veterans, and their families. Additional funding was also provided by the Stephen and Alexandra Cohen Foundation, honoring our obligation to give back to those who have served the United States.
This is PBS.
Grace French, and I am 13 years old.
From West Point, we went to Fort Leavenworth in Kansas.
And then we went to Fort Campbell, which is in Kentucky.
I deployed with 132 Cav Rista to the Diyala province of Iraq,
And then we went down to Fort Polk.
where I served as an observer controller, training units to deploy to Afghanistan and Iraq.
Then we moved to Fort Lewis in Washington.
And then I was selected to command 2nd Battalion, 1st Infantry Regiment, deployed to Afghanistan from 2009 to 2010.
Then Louisiana again, and then as soon as I graduated, they moved to Pennsylvania, right here.
And now I'm currently teaching with the Department of Command, Leadership, and Management at the U.S. Army War College.
I think I've been to 9 schools.
Maybe 6.
I went to multiple schools, some 2 for each state, and it was difficult starting, but most of the time people are welcoming and you start to get the hang of making new friends and putting yourself out there. My name's Sarah, I'm new here, what's going on, you know. It's not as hard anymore. I think it was harder whenever I was, actually I'd say it's harder now than when I was younger, making new friends and stuff.
You get to meet a lot of new people and you get to have a lot of friends, but then the bad thing is you have to move away from them every 1 or 2 years, so that's the bad part.
With all the moves, the deployments, you've just got to get a lot closer with your family. And I mean, they're your only support system, really.
Each move, I unpack the house, things up on the wall, curtains, because you want to make it a home for the kids as quickly as possible. So I drive them crazy, I know, for a little, you know, about a week, and then everything, it looks like we've have been there forever.
Here, y'all start putting some up. Fort Campbell. This is another Fort Campbell. Fort Polk.
We were at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I found out he was going to Iraq. Anne-Marie was 4. I think Sarah was 8 or 9. And Kyle was going into 6th grade, so like 12, I think.
I didn't really know too much about it. I was pretty young. So, I mean, I knew he was going to a war zone.
I remember we would write notes in a box and we'd send them to him every month.
We would like write letters to each other a lot and stuff.
It's not like I didn't talk about it with them. It was more, hey, let's write Daddy letters, send cards. So just trying to have a routine for the kids was really important, I think.
I remember it pretty well, but not as well as the most recent one to Afghanistan.
I was at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and I was selected to take command, replacing a commander and taking responsibility for the unit less than 3 months before it deployed to Afghanistan. That was difficult, actually. We found out in the middle of the school year. So Kathy and I decided together that we were going to have Kathy and the kids stay back at Fort Polk.
The first time he went, we didn't have any kids, so that was really easy. Second time, we had our son. Halfway through, we had a kid. Yeah. And the third one, we had a child, and now this one, we're going to have 2 by the time he gets back. So they're never the same, and you just never know what's going to happen during any of them.
I've got to see every step of the reconstruction of Iraq, from the initial invasion all the way to Operation New Dawn and restructuring of the government. It's one of those experiences that I don't think can really be put to words adequately. The bonds that are formed between soldiers downrange, those bonds have never been severed.
While I'm a nurse, there's a difference between me being able to separate myself from a patient versus him with his battle buddies who have been around him, joking and everything. And one of them getting injured and or killed, that is one thing I've never really pressed on him to make him talk to me regarding those things. He has become more open because he has started to realize it's better to get these things out externally versus internal and fester on them.
Initially on in our relationship, I wanted to guard her from what I thought were the bad things of a deployment. But I think with every deployment, I think I share more.
My daddy is going to go see camels. None of my times are different because this is the same thing. That's mine and that's my dad's.
LJ was almost 2 the last time Dad left, and he got back, I think, about 3 months before he turned 3. He is 6 now. By the time his dad gets back, he'll be 7. Trying to figure out, the best way to explain, because this is the first deployment that he's gonna remember. I can show him on Skype, I can show him pictures all day long, but I can't make him be here. Sorry. But it's part of the Army, We signed up for it. See how it ends right there? There you go. Good job.
I'm in a position that they can't just leave behind. I'm a platoon sergeant. I got guys I have to lead to the front. So part of that is me being there. It's kind of hard to lead from behind.
My wife is an extremely special person, and I get to be a leader of soldiers, get to be a father, which is amazing, and know that she has my back and that she's there regardless.
My name is Samantha Marie Van Fossen. I'm a specialist. I'm in the Army Reserve. I joined hoping that I could get on a deployment as quick as I could because I want to do good things for my country. The only thing that I have trouble with is just leaving my family. My mom, I know she's not going to want to see me go. And my dad, he's going to have a really hard time with that too. But they're all proud of me, so that's all that matters.
Love you, honey. Bye.
These wars are very different than the ones we have fought in the past. When we first started, we had not deployed for extended period of time. And then the length of deployments, 12 months, and then in some cases 15-month deployments. And then going back for the second, the third, and the fourth time, the impact it had on our families was significant.
It's definitely true that the whole family serves. You're asking kids to move frequently. You're asking kids and spouses to be without their other spouse for long periods of time. The deployments of the last 14 years have really been tough on families.
This is the first generation of military kids that has grown up experiencing mom or dad being gone for multiple deployments. And we're working hard to understand what the implications of this lifestyle is for children, but we're not likely to really fully understand until, they grow.
We are engaged in those longest sustained combat operations in the history of our country, and it is being done for the first time in our history with an all-volunteer professional military force. And that does take a great toll on our families. It's been a struggle.
I mean, every day you wake up, you know that the person you love is in harm's way, and there's a lot of praying going on.
When I travel around to visit troops, I will often ask them, how many of you are here on your first deployment? How many on your second, third, fourth, fifth? I'll generally get up to 6, 7, sometimes 8. And I think some young men and women actually have to decide for themselves, which one is the real world? Is it the world that they experience with their battle buddies and wingmen and swim buddies in combat? Or is it the world at home?
Funding for the Homefront was provided in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Additional funding was also provided by the Boeing Company. Boeing recognizes that service and defense of our nation is a mission that extends to entire families. For nearly 100 years, Boeing has been deeply committed to supporting our nation's military personnel, veterans, and their families. Additional funding was also provided by the Stephen and Alexandra Cohen Foundation, honoring our obligation to give back to those who have served the United States.
Good evening, I'm Bob Woodruff. Since 9/11, American troops have been engaged in the longest period of sustained combat in our history, 14 years and counting. Today's military families are experiencing something new. And yet only a tiny fraction of American families include a service member or a recent veteran. The all-volunteer force is made up of 1.3 million active duty troops and another 800,000 in the National Guard and Reserve. More than half are married, and the vast majority of those families have children as well. Tonight, you will get a chance to meet those families, some of the most important and least understood families in America. Families that have chosen the United States military as a career.
Diego, stay on the back and get ready to run. Baseball stance. All right, boys, ready? Sebastian, you ready? Diego, you gotta stay foot on the bag. LJ, stand up. All right, boys, ready?
My name is Staff Sergeant Leo Robert Gruba in the United States Army.
There you go, run it out. 30 seconds, Jet.
I come from a really long, extensive military background.
Captain.
I grew up in a Navy family. My father kind of set the stage for my involvement in the military. And I grew up from pretty much post to post, from the east side of the United States all the way to Hawaii.
Slide, you're not gonna slide? What's going on today?
My name is Serena Marie Gruba, and my husband is Leo Robert Gruba. I actually met him in March of 2005 while I was going to nursing school. I have an MBA in healthcare administration, so full-time nurse and full-time mom.
Ball. All right, run, LJ. Drop the bat, LJ.
LJ just recently turned 6. So trying to explain to him what I'm doing can get difficult at times, but I always tell him I'm off fighting the bad guys, and for a 6-year-old, that kind of connects, that resonates.
When he said he was deploying again, I was like, when? Because we are expecting our second child, so trying to play the whole, when are you going? Are you actually gonna be here for the delivery?
Bring it in, guys, bring it in, bring it in.
And then now, because I normally do work 12-hour shifts and have on calls, I am now trying to find that, 8 to 5 job so I can pick up, which will then be 2 children from daycare before they close. The only thing I can say is I will have to judge it day by day as it comes.
There you go. Oh, yeah, pump cutter.
There you go. Every deployment's different. We've already gone through 3, and together this will make the 4th one. But for him, I think this makes number
This will make
6.
4, 5, 6, yeah. Sounds better.
Yeah.
My wife is basically the CEO, the chief financial officer. She is everything in our family.
She's been the rock. When the kids are down, you know, she has to bring them back up.
He has allowed me to do my job, regardless of the time that it takes to do the job. But it's because I know that the Homefront's good.
So we like to say that families also serve through repeated deployments, repeated moves, supporting the soldier, sailor, airman, Marine in their mission. Remember, a service member can do their job if they know their family is taken care of.
My wife has raised our family. I like to think I actually contributed from time to time when I was home and when I could do so. Spouses, male or female, you know, they provide the glue that allows that man or woman in uniform to go off, you know, knowing that what the family's doing behind is that they'll be cared for.
Button
That's a good one. It's nice.
Yeah.
What about this one?
Oh, that's
Which one?
That's not bad.
My name is Catherine Joan French. My husband is Jeffrey Wellington French. He's a colonel in the United States Army. As a military wife or a spouse, you take one day at a time. And you try not to worry about the, you know, when's he deploying, you know, what's gonna happen. That's how I deal with it. I think a lot of spouses do.
Colonel Jeff French. I'm an infantry officer in the U.S. Army, and I've been in the Army for 23 years. I come from a military family. My dad served for 23 years in the Army. My dad was assigned to U.S. Forces Caribbean, and so I attended Key West High School.
We're high school sweethearts. We met juniors in high school, and we started dating senior year.
We ended up staying together through the 4 years that we were apart while I was at the academy and she was attending the University of Florida in Gainesville.
It was so exciting. He was at West Point. You know, I was at University of Florida. Back and forth, plane trips.
Kathy and I got married in '91, and her first move out of the state of Florida was to our first duty station together, which was in Anchorage, Alaska.
It was incredible. It was a neat experience at the beginning of our being in the military together. I guess we were married about 2.5 years before we had Kyle. So he was born in Alaska.
Kyle Jeffrey French. I'm 20 years old. I was born in Anchorage, Alaska. Then I went to Georgia.
We went to Fort Benning, and then from Benning, we went to Fort Hood.
Fort Hood, Texas was great. I had my company command as a part of the 1st Cavalry Division, and we also had our second child, Sarah, at Fort Hood.
My name's Sarah Catherine French, and I'm 17 years old. I have moved to many different places.
From Fort Hood, we went to Texas A&M. Jeff went to grad school there.
Got a master's degree in history, and then we moved up to West Point.
And that's where we had Anne Marie.
My name is Anne Marie.